Hey everyone, it's a little bit of an unusual cartoon research post tonight, but Jerry's in New York and I don't want to make him wait for my post. So I thought I'd talk a little about Tom and Jerry, the Van Buren set, and kind of where things are at, because I'm kind of living with it right now. Let's share the screen. So one of the things that's cool about working on one of these projects is that you almost always end up with multiple elements of things. And by the time you're done with a project, you've gone through folder after folder of these things. And you have a pretty good idea of what exists and what you could scan, and kind of, hopefully by the end of it, you've found at least pretty good material and everything. And on this one, I think I found just about the best that I know to exist on everything. So one of the things that I've loved about working on a lot of these things is that I'm so lucky that people share such good material. Now on Tom and Jerry, there's mostly just 16mm material, but then you find 16mm material that's in all different condition and all different quality prints. So one of the things that we try to do is at least be able to compare them and get lots of different copies of them. In the end, I make these lists that are sort of like the cleanup lists of what each person did on the project, or kind of what exists and what things are done and what things aren't done. And this last weekend, I scanned the very last of this stuff. And so there's a couple little more pieces to finish. And that's kind of exciting, because now I'm at a point where I've started to work on making sure that final versions are ready to kind of clean up and crop. So what we'll do is bring stuff into Premiere, and I'm on my older machine right now. So this isn't actually the one I usually edit on. But let's look at a couple of things. So we'll bring in, here's Mark's print of Trouble, which is probably the best 16 I've seen on this one. There was a company called Walter Gutloan that bought these films from Van Buren in the late 30s. And funny enough, Walter Gutloan actually died just after they were acquired. So they ended up being released into the 40s. And by the late 40s, Gutloan had started to put, rather than have the Van Buren titles on the end, they started to leave the original titles, and they changed the name of the Gutloan Company to Library Films. So this is what one of the cleanups looks like. And once we've run it through the cleanup programs, they don't have the soundtrack on them anymore. But the next step from this point, because we're looking at a 2K on this, the next step would be to crop it. And usually what I do is I'll crop these without, I'll crop them to the actual size, but just for an example here, we'll show kind of what is done. It's kind of the left and right cropped. So sometimes you'll have to go shot by shot just to kind of do it a little bit better. But then in the end, we'll want this to be 1920 1080, which is HD quality, and that's what will end up on the disc. And rather than 24 frames per second, we'll be running at 23976, which is the standard for Blu-ray. And then we'll scale this down to match kind of wherever we're at. It's pretty good. So now we're closer. Now we're closer to having kind of a finished crop on this. And we'll go, this film's already been steadied, but we'll go shot by shot and just make sure that our cropping and alignment is working pretty well for them. Frequently, if you're working on a project that's big, you end up with material that's in all different condition. And what's been lucky about this is that so many people knew we were working on this that, lots of different prints were offered. Here's Alice Savage's print of Jungle Jam. which is pretty beautiful. It's not absolutely perfect, but it's pretty darn nice. And so there's a couple of splices in it that we'll fix from another print. But we also have a nice print from Tommy Stathis that had the original titles, and this is a gut loan print. Actually, one of the best gut loan prints I've seen. And in fact, on the Tom and Jerry set, a lot of the scans are the best I've seen on this particular film or that particular film. Happy Hobos is one that's been kind of hard to find a good copy on. And this print isn't too bad, honestly. This is what looks like might be a 16mm print down of it, which has already been studied. You can see the frame kind of moving all over the place, but the actual image isn't. And that's pretty common, like once you've studied it. And with studying, you fix all kinds of things. There was, of course, when it's originally filmed, it's pretty tight, but even by the time you make a fine grain and then make the dupe neg, or if you make a reduction, there's all sorts of little mechanical slop that happens. These kind of scenes, if you're working on them in a cleanup program, are particularly hard. And this one, I think Becca may have done, which looks really great. And David Grauman did a really nice job studying a lot of these. This is one that we've never found the original titles on. So we recreated the titles years ago, and I think we're going to have to do that again. The hardest thing about the project for me is that the variance of quality between the 16mm isn't too bad. But the bigger problem now is that we got an absolutely beautiful element on piano tuners, which puts even these beautiful 16mm a little bit to shame, although that's pretty nice. This is Mark Hausler's print of Tuba Tutor, which is beautiful, and Devin Baxter did an absolutely great job cleaning this one up. I think I've shown a few of these things before. What else do we have here? So here's the thing that's hard, is that stuff all looks pretty decent until you see this, and then it's so beautiful. This is Piano Tuners, which Ted Komorowski finished cleanup on recently. It looks absolutely beautiful. I just wish we could get them all like this. You can see what's cool about seeing the actual camera negative is you can see how it was actually filmed. The aperture is actually slightly outside. You know, the full frame, it's got a silent aperture that it was shot with. And it looks like the Rueful baton was actually, for the most part, never superimposed on there. It was actually being filmed with the art at the same time, which is pretty cool. See, there's some variance in stock because they're using different stocks. Look, this was designed for the soundtrack area to be cropped, so that would keep this title safe. And so when we do this, we're going to pay attention to that movie tone aspect ratio that was on this. Redskin Blues is one that I recently worked on with Becca, and I think Alan worked on this one a little bit too. And we've got these rust spots here. This is Jeff Massini's really nice print. And we had all this stuff cleaned up already, but we've been recently using Diamond, and it does an even better job of cleaning things up. So we have this, and Jay Diaz was nice enough to send another print of the film, which actually improves a few of the shots, which is pretty cool. So in the end, we'll combine those two prints, kind of put it together. I'm probably as happy with how this one is looking as I was with the Cubby Bear set. I think we're kind of in a similar place. This is the one that started as probably had dual title cards, including Lyle and Miller. And I always wondered why there's a waterfall at the beginning of this. This is Mark's print, also quite nice. Without Mark, this would not be as nice of a set, that's for sure. He's got the best materials on many of these films. Spanish twist, which I think is also looking quite nice. I think I'm just at HD on that. Oh, it's because I had piano tuners open, so I changed the sequence to 4K. One of the things that I've really loved too about working on these things is that if I'm talking about them a little bit, sometimes another piece of material comes out of the woodwork. Here's something odd that we have to deal with. This is Pots and Pans, Tommy's really nice print. And I also have Mark's really nice print that has the original titles, so we're combining those together. But because of how they would frame the 16 millimeter, Tom's print frames the top of the frame, and Mark's print frames just a little bit lower on it. So if we could combine them, we would get a little bit more of a full frame, although still not quite. So it's been a debate whether or not to do that on this one. Because you know, if you do stuff like that, you want to make sure that it comes out okay. So in the end, what you hope to have by the time you're done with one of these titles is a pretty good idea of what condition you can actually get everything in by the end. And these ones here are ones that we have to do additional steadying to and just finish everything off. But we're almost done. And that project is kind of obsessing all of us right now as we try to finish it and move on to a couple of other things. So I'm really hoping that a lot's happened on it this week that I haven't shown. But I'm really hoping by the end of this week that we'll have pretty much everything wrapped up. Anyway, that's all I got. Have a good week, everybody. Bye.